Now, barely 2 weeks into the national SIM registration exercise, the process has been fraught with complaints of delays, frustrations, and long queues. Tonight on Upfront, we'll discuss the way forward on this and the bigger issue of national identification on the show. After this break.
Hi, this is Lexus Bill, host of Drive Time on Joy 99.7 FM. Listen, you don't have to worry if you miss Drive Time or Personality Profile. It's going to be live on our podcast page. Just log on to www.myjoyonline.com/podcast. You can listen to Drive Time, Personality Profile, and any other of your favorite shows on Joy FM on that page. You don't have to miss a show at all. Joy 99.7 FM, radio for discerning listeners.
You're welcome back. This is Upfront. My name is Raymond Dakwa, and tonight, this all-important conversation about SIM cards registration. We're told some time ago it's going to start from the 1st of this month, but some 2 weeks into the month, lots of people have queued up at places with lots of complaints, which you sure should be telling more about later on. But the Ghana card acquisition difficulties is also part of the conversation we are having on this table. We'll start from Parliament, where we are joined by the Vice Chair and the ranking member on the Communications Committee of Parliament. But before we speak to them, my guest in studio is a man who was known for a very long time as the social policy man to go to, the expert with a competence in that particular area. Then he headed the National Identification Authority at the point in time. Dr. William Ahaji, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
I hope you are doing well.
I'm doing well by God's grace.
Brilliant. Give me a second. Let me just get to the phone lines where Sylvester Tete, who is the Vice Chairman of the Communications Committee of Parliament, and also the Honorable A.B.A. Fuseni, who is a ranking member on that Communications Committee, joins me for a quick conversation on this matter. Honorable gentlemen, you're welcome.
Thank you, my brother.
Now, let me start with you, the Honorable Sylvester Tete. I mean, I'm sure you have heard of the complaints people have filed, especially beginning this week. This is because of the many things that the NIA card, for example, has been tied to: SIM card registration. Secondly, the directive from the Controller Accountant General that if you're a government worker by the 1st of December, you risk not being paid if you don't have the national identification card. Many are complaining about this because of what they consider to be delays, frustrations, and their attempts to get it at the very last minute. How do we deal with this problem?
Well, thank you very much. A very good evening to our viewers, listening, well, watching us by social media handle. I mean, we've had such complaints in the past week. This is normal with a Ghanaian attitude where we always wait for the last minute. I believe that national identification has rolled out. Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you, Honorable, yes.
Yes, I think it's normal with a Ghanaian attitude where when the program is rolled out, we wait to the last minute. I don't think that because many people had not had a Ghana card, and now there's a stampede at the various point to get a Ghana card for two reasons. First, for SIM card re-registration, and then secondly, for controllers' announcement that just came up. And I think that it's something that is a cause to worry about. But I believe that NIA has a number of registration points that people have to go through. A lot of people do not take part in the mass registration of NIA cards, and that's what's causing the problem as it is. Obviously, if you're given 1, 2, 3 years, people will still not take advantage of it. But I believe that nobody in this country will be denied opportunity, as it were, to be able to go through the registration process. So, I mean, the first week of this announcement, and then we are in the second week of the SIM card re-registration. So people are matching up at this center. And don't forget that the SIM card re-registration is a 6-month period, and I believe that by the time the 6 months elapse, everybody will have opportunity to get the NIA card so far. I will also, when Parliament resumes, we will look at these things. I'm happy my ranking is on the line, and we've always engaged, even at the committee level, to look at the processes. The minister had briefed the committee about the processes to get this far. And I think that it's still within the purview of Select Committee on Communications to invite the minister or the responsible institutions to look at the way forward if indeed some people are going to lose their salaries or will not have opportunity to do re-registration. And if it has to do with the NIA, obviously, the Supervising Ministry will brief the committee properly and not to take away anything from many people who are complaining. What I want to ask is that people should accept restraint and wait for their turn. But obviously, I believe that nobody will be denied opportunity to lose his or her card or his or her salary. We'll work towards that. I mean, this is a human institution. And it comes with these teaching challenges that we have to deal with. We don't have a perfect system anywhere. Everywhere in the world, every program that starts has its own teaching problems. And once the teaching problems are coming up, we'll have to sit around the clock and deal with it. So people should not be afraid that people will not have opportunity to get the NIA card. They will get opportunity to get it. And I believe that the NIA themselves have had the complaint. And they may have to increase their capacity or increase their registration points to ensure that everybody gets the opportunity. If you go to other parts of the country, the offices are free. But because we have the chunk of the population in Accra and Kumasi, that is where we are having this problem. But elsewhere, it's not like that. What it means is that we can augment the current services with additional machines and ensure that everybody has opportunity to get a Ghana card.
Very well. I'll come back to you, but there's this point that ought to be stressed, though. You are insisting that nobody will be denying their salary, but I've heard the communications lead at the Controller and Accountant General's Department categorically stated that they will not move the deadline of the 1st of December by a day. Where do you get this optimism from?
Well, I think that it may delay, salaries may delay, but cannot be denied. I mean, there's an inherent right of anybody who works for the state that is entitled to his or her salary. I'm not sure anybody could be denying his or her salary, but it could be delayed, and that's the fear. Okay. And if it delays, that's, I mean, injustice. If the system is not smooth enough to get people get their salary on time, how could people go to work and fall without their salary? But I think that...
but quickly on the point, what the worker group so far, NAT, CLOSAC, ICU, what they have basically said is that this is unacceptable to them. There should be a deliberate attempt by government to help them get the cards, then the deadline can be set to link it to it. And without that coming in, they do not understand why that should be the case. Do you still think that Controller will stick with this 1st of December deadline?
Well, I think that we will still be talking, and we'll have to look at, of course, government had made it available for every Ghanaian, wherever you are, to access your card within a certain period of time. And the NIA has done the mass registration in this country. I mean, let me be honest with you. I didn't take advantage of the mass registration. I recently had my Ghana card, and I had to go through this same process. And I reckon the challenge people are going through. So it is not that government did not provide opportunity for every Ghanaian to have the card during the mass registration. That notwithstanding, it's still not also to say that everybody who wanted to have it during the mass registration had the opportunity. Therefore, we'll balance it and look at how many people have not had opportunity. If the chunk of the population are still in Accra and Kumasi, and they are part of the government budget, obviously a special dispensation will be created for them to have the cards have their cards. Ministries, departments, and agencies can approach the National Identification Authority to have a special arrangement for them. And I think that should not be a problem at all.
Well, so we understand that the NIA itself is swarmed, and that as we speak, there are people who are struggling virtually every day to get it. How are we sure that they can make exceptions for government workers?
Well,
when indeed premium, those who are on the premium range
of that nature can still negotiate and sit down with the NIA where I recall in Parliament, when we came to the 8th Parliament, we all know that passport, you have to go to the passport office to get your particulars done and get your passport. But a special arrangement was made for members of Parliament for passport office to come to August House to get our passport, our data taken, passport printed for us. So I think that institutions can approach the NIA when they have a special, they have to do an audit first of all and know how many of their members have not had a Ghana card. Looking at the pending December 1st deadline, to reach out to NIA, I think that they should explore that opportunity. They should not speculate. They should explore that opportunity and let NIA come out and say that we are not giving that special dispensation. And then, of course, we can have the conversation. But I think that NIA is open. They can have that conversation with them, and they can have the card smoothly delivered to them and they can be the December 1st deadline.
Just before I move away from the NIA matters, the SIM registration is also another thorny issue.
Right.
Now, the complaint is pretty clear from the people that they just are struggling to go through the process. The minority in Ghana's parliament last week raised the concern about the use of the Ghana card alone for this registration. To them, it's not supposed to be limited to that card alone, and the others could be used. Mindful of what's currently happening, is it time government beats retreat and decides to consider the other available national identification cards, passports, and the options available?
Well, I think it's a legitimate call, but of course, we've had a call to use other cards apart from the national identification card, and the system is beset with a lot of challenges. Fraud, we know there's a lot of fraud, especially with the mobile money transactions in this country. Of course, some few miscreants cannot change the fortunes of the entire population. Yeah. But I think that if we are using the Ghana card as a sole card for SIM registration, is to streamline and ensure that we have a safe environment to transact our businesses. That notwithstanding, I think that if the genuine case being channeled by the opposition, the SIM card registration, the only frustration I see here, one has to start the process from your mobile phone and get to the vendor to complete the process. Yeah. That's a bit problematic. And I think that if you're going to the vendor, then you go to the vendor and get it completed. If you're doing it on your mobile phone from the comfort of your home, you have an opportunity to complete the process when you start it from your house. I think that naturally, with a new system that has been rolled out, obviously it will come with these challenges. People should exercise patience and let us go through it. We have 6 months period to deal with it, and I'm pretty sure that obviously an extension will be granted. But that before then, whatever challenge that people are identified, we are listening. And I'm happy once again that my ranking is listening. He has been an advocate for the voiceless, and we all do say we will listen to the concerns of the ordinary people and will channel that through the sector ministry or the agencies responsible for this SIM card registration. We met all the telcos before Parliament. We went on research, and they all gave an indication that they are ready so that we all sanitize our system. Look, we've had complaints, even at the committee level, where members of the committee had attested that people had attempted to kill them and they actually lost money as a result of people.
Very well. Honorable, I'll come back to you. Just forgive me. Let me speak to your colleague, the ranking member. The Honorable Ebe Fuseni, do you in the minority feel that your earlier call has been justified by the current difficulties besetting the entire process?
Hello, Raymond.
Yes, Honorable.
Come again, I didn't hear you well.
I was asking whether you feel this is justification for your stance that more than the Ghana card should be used for the SIM re-registration.
Yeah, Raymond, let me make it from the very clear from the very outset. We are not opposed to the measures being put out to ensure the re-registration of SIM cards, because I think that there's some degree of malfeasance, fraud, and untoward behavior is being carried out. And in these days of the huge potential of the commission of cyber crimes, we should all take the requisite steps to deal with it. But the approach to us, respectfully, it's not being done right. Look, Raymond, only 7 million Ghanaians out of a population of over 30 million, 30.8, if you are going to go by the last census, have the card. You are talking about a situation where less than 1/4 of the population have got the card. And Raymond, you are also talking additionally of a situation where the NIA does not even have the complement of offices across all the districts of this country. There are many districts in this country where the NIA has no presence. So we are talking about, Raymond, we are talking about a district capital. Hey, what about smaller towns and just go down to the village? So those who want to access the Ghana card in those areas, where do they go? We are going to stagger them with cost. So if they have to travel from the village to the town, and even in the nearest district capital, where even the district capital, there's no NIA office, they have to go to the nearest biggest town where they can get an opportunity to register. And go, and they may not get to that day, they have to go and sleep. Remember, we are talking about the situation where now the NIA is a state, it is still charging between 5 and 250 and 250 Ghana cedis for the issuance of that. Remember, how many of our people can afford it? Look at the excruciating hardship Ghanaians are going through. And we are also expecting them at these difficult moments in their life to cope up this huge amount. Remember, 250 Ghana cedis is a huge amount for many Ghanaians today. So in the sense of all this, we have suggested that why don't you just realize, Raymond, are you with me?
I'm hearing you, Honorable.
Yeah, why don't you just liberalize the basic instrument for registration? Look, we had an engagement with the minister, and we pointed this out because we are well-meaning, and we want the exercise to succeed, but we want all Ghanaians to be involved. So we pointed out to the minister that, look, why don't you add other forms of identification? The voter ID card is a credible instrument. So is the passport. So are driver licenses or birth certificates. So what is wrong with asking that if you have a passport, you can go and use your passport? Or if you have a voter ID card, which is in the villages, Raymond, across the left and right of this country, is the most common identity, the voter ID card. That is why you can elicit the maximum participation of our people in this exercise. So why not use that? Why make practice of this Ghana card? And Raymond, take note that this Ghana card issue, the minister was quoting regulation LI 2111, section 7. Raymond, go and read LI 211 section 7. Section 7 says that the use of the ID card, the Ghana card, is mandatory. But it does not say it is a sole instrument for identification. It doesn't say so. So let's not confuse the language of mandatory use of the ID card to be synonymous with the fact that it's a willing card. That's not it. And so we are saying that the law doesn't inhibit, it doesn't prohibit the use of other forms of identification. And so if we want the exercise to go smoothly for everybody, why don't you expand the bounds of the use of identity so that those who don't have the Ghana card can access it and go on? Now, Raymond, we are talking about a situation where even from the legal standpoint,
okay,
there is a problem. Look, you can recall, Raymond, that as far back as 2011, we did a registration, you can remember.
Yeah.
And people resorted to genuinely use the news at that time, passport, birth certificate at that time, to register their SIM. Today, if you go and make a new law, and you say that the new law overrides all other laws that existed, you are engaging in retrospective application of law. And our constitution stands on retroactive legislation. You can't do that. You cannot make a law today and say that law takes effect 5 years ago. You cannot. For those who have their SIM from 2011 and registered all that time to this period, you cannot say you are going to cancel because you have instituted a new law today. You are cancelling all their SIM with the current card that you have just instituted. It's illegal, in my humble opinion. You cannot take away the rights of citizens in that manner.
I get your point.
It is fraught with so many challenges. So why don't we just double down and let us use those appropriate means of identification that everybody can have access to, so that the exercise can go smoothly.
Well,
but if you give the deadline that by March 2022, if you don't have the card and you are not able to authenticate your SIM, it will be taken away from you. You may be acting illegally and capriciously outside the bounds of the law. We are in a law and order society. So public officials cannot do as they please. That's the same thing we have just heard from the Controller and Accountant General. And I've been asking that, where did the Controller get that authority to issue the fiat that is? Under what authority is he issuing the fiat that he's issuing? Raymond, who gave him that authority? Where is he derived? Under which law is he saying that people who don't have it will not get their salary? Can he tell us under which law he's functioning? He doesn't have that right. And if he does that, he'll be acting capriciously. Raymond, Article 296 of the Constitution of this Republic talks about giving discretionary, the use of discretionary power.
Should be fair, candid, and reasonable.
That even when you are exercising discretionary authority, you have a bounden duty to be fair and to be candid. It's not being fair. You give workers only just 6 weeks to go and acquire a card which is to all intents and purposes.
Wow.
Raymond, as you speak now, there are thousands and tens of thousands of Ghanaians who have even gone through the process, and the NIA cannot issue them their card. Today, their cards have been pending for more than 1 year. So these are people who registered earlier and they don't have the card. You are now even going to register. Those who are lying, they can't see God. What about you, the one face down?
On this,
So you see the leader of challenges. So what we should be doing, even if we want to complement the NIA, is to ask the finance minister to make more resources available to the NIA, to open more offices, to get even to the rural area, and be able to register more of our people. That if this is an emergency, let the NIA get resources to employ more people, to go into the field, to move from community to community, to get more people registered. If we are so hell-bent on making sure that the Ghana card is the only identification instrument you want to use, then you must put more resources into the opportunity for Ghanaians to acquire the card.
Honorable.
But it should not be putting the onus on Ghanaians to use whatever magic they can in these difficult times when they are struggling to make ends meet.
Honorable ABF Hussaini, if you can hear me, sorry,
Yeah.
I need to ask this question. You are members of parliament. Are you able to exercise your authority to haul in the minister and the responsible agencies to come and provide the answers of why we are where we are here today?
But Raymond, I can tell you that we are on recess now. We'll be resuming in less than 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
I can tell you that this is a matter of priority for us. We will get the appropriate minister before the House to come and answer. But let me tell you the problem with the NIA is like a bat. It is not a mammal and it is not a bird. Well, clearly it would have been under the aegis of the Ministry of Communications. They are tossing it left, right, and center. Sometimes they put it under the office of the president. Sometimes they put it at the Ministry of Finance, and they keep on tossing it. And you don't know exactly whether the ministry should lie. But this would have been a straightforward communication. It's an IT institution.
Okay.
So clearly it should be under the Ministry of Statistics and Digitalization, so that the appropriate communications committee can exercise oversight. The committee on which I serve as a ranking member, so that we can have oversight over it. But you see that they keep on tossing it, and it may not, one time, it may fall under your remit, and another time it goes on.
Very well.
But I am saying without any doubt that this is a matter, whichever decision we have to take, we will not allow this imposition of additional hardship, unnecessary hardship on Ghanaians, when we could have avoided it. So we will take up the matter when Parliament resumes.
I am grateful to you, Honorable Sylvester Tete, and the Honorable Ranking Member on the Communications Committee, ABF Hussaini, for joining us this evening. Now, we'll stay in studio on this conversation because I have a man who's been at the helm of affairs of that very controversial institution, the National Identification Authority, which has been trying for God knows how long, since Professor Dumont's time, to just give Ghanaians an ID card, everybody, proper identification. And yet sometimes succeeds along the line only to fail finally. But it looks like there's a sustained effort now. Dr. Haji, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
I hope you are doing well again.
I'm good.
Now, this question is important. Why are we unable to get every Ghanaian an ID card so that all of this conversation will end? Why did you fail to provide all of us ID cards? Why are they currently unable to do so?
Okay, thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity. I think that basically what the NIA is supposed to do is to build a national identification system. And it comprises the enrollment, the registration, creating a national biometric register,
Okay.
and then issuing cards and establishing a system which is online based for identity authentication at every point where there's a transaction. So NIA's job is not just the issue of ID cards. And that's why this conversation is very, very important, because the issue that has come up, indeed, when the current administration took over, they virtually decommissioned virtually everything we did. The justification was that we took only 2 fingerprints on each hand. And so they will be taking 10.
And a card embedded with a bigger memory size.
Exactly.
That would take a lot more information.
Exactly.
Was the one they provided.
And then
that's what they also said.
They also said that they were going to do instant issuance. Indeed, the technology was obsolete. That's the language they used. And that they were going to do instant issuance. And that was the justification for decommissioning virtually everything that we did. Now, did they issue instant cards? No. They went back to the whole system, the same system that we were using about collecting the data in the field and coming back to personalize the cards.
But there were technical challenges, right? You are aware of them, right?
No, there definitely was a technical challenge. So why would you return to a system that you said is not correct? And the justification is that these are 2 cards, which I issued one, and they issued the second one. If you look at the PIN number, it's the same. It hasn't changed at all. I can show that to you. But I'm not justifying.
So I'm unsure what you're saying. You're saying that
this is the card I issued in my time.
Okay, so the ID card we got when you were.
Yes, it's here.
Which year was this specifically?
This we issued in 2010.
10
and 11.
Okay.
Okay.
The one with the smaller memory size or no memory at all?
It's a 2D barcode.
Okay.
Yes. Now the chip embedded, and so it has an applet, a huge memory.
Yes.
But the point about this is that what do we need the memory for if you don't have online opportunities for identity verification? You know, what would happen is that you need to plug it in as if you're going to an ATM card.
Okay.
What the controller is asking for now, and we can take that one first before we come to the registration.
Yeah.
What the controller is asking for is just show your national ID card, and then you'll be paid your salary.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Why?
It doesn't make sense because this is supposed to be a biometric verification. What can be done is that they acquire a biometric verification device at that terminal so that it could be loaded with information from NIA. And then if you go there with your PIN number, they can key in that, and then you do the identity authentication with a fingerprint. You don't need a card. You don't need a card to go to the controller and show them that this is my NIA card, so pay me. No. What you're looking for.
It's the main problem, not that the people do not have the cards at all.
Yes. So why don't they have the cards? Because the enrollment was not complete. I'll side with NIA to a large extent, to the point that COVID disrupted the enrollment process to a large extent. But I think that...
But they still carried that along the line anyway.
They did, but you can't do 100% registration.
During that period, that's fair.
Even without COVID, you can't do 100%.
That's true.
And that's why there's provision in the Act that you establish offices. Or there are other systems that you can use to distribute the card. Now we have kiosks. They are just like ATM machines where you can load them with cards, and then people go there, then they just use their fingerprint and they can pick out their card. It is connected to your AFIS, to your central database online, and so they can go there and pick their card. There are options available, but I think that essentially what NIA is not doing well, is not doing the public education well. It hasn't got enough resources to go out and distribute the cards as well. Now,
that's what you think is the problem.
Yes, it's a big problem about card distribution.
Did they tell you that?
But that's obvious. It is obvious because the original program of instant card issuance just failed. And so now they come back to falling back on the issue about let's print the cards at the central point and go out to distribute.
And to be fair, one of the marked differences between what they said would make us have a new and a better improved system was the issuance and the instant issuance.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That was the justification, the selling point of the new ID card. That hasn't worked. And understandably so, we caution that because of the kind of connectivity we have, you can't do instant issuance. And so do the personalization at the center, but use different approaches to distribute the cards. And I was talking about biometric verification kiosks for card distributions. You can put them at a point and people can collect their cards. They pay a token, just like you're buying Coke from a machine.
Okay.
You can do that. Or what I did before I left was that we had a number of buses. We customized one of the buses that could then drive around with cards, give locations, they go there, they distribute the cards. You don't let the people come and crowd the center for card collection.
Okay.
So that NIA has had this difficulty over the years, and that's, we need to think outside the box. This old system where people have to come to the office to collect. I registered at somewhere in Kwabenya. I collected my card in Medina because I was following them. This issue about card collection, people registered at different places and they have to go somewhere else to collect the cards. That's going to be a big difficulty for many of the people who are being asked to go and collect their cards before they come and collect their salaries. It's not going to work, and we would like to advise the controller to probably pull back on that particular policy because it's just not going to work. Now, people are now going to enroll right now, for some of them who have not been able to, and it's not their fault. The system says that the first arrangement was to do a mass registration. Then subsequent to that, you open offices and allow people to register as and when they are ready and available to do that. All of a sudden, there's a timeline that you must have your card in 6 weeks' time or you are not going to be paid. No, it's not an appropriate policy.
Hold on for me. I'll take a break. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation and we'll be exploring what the options are, especially even with the SIM registration. And that question ought to be answered. Why haven't we been able to get every Ghanaian a card after so many years of trying? After this break, this conversation continues.
Hello, my name is Evans Mensah, and you can relive all the fun and excitement on Top Story, Newsnight, and of course, Ghana Connect via podcast. All you need to do is to log on to myjoyonline/podcast. Search for your favorite show and relive the moment. Joy 99.7 FM, your radio for discerning listeners.
Joy 99.7.
You're welcome back. This is Upfront. My name is Raymond Darkwa. The conversation tonight is on why people have not gotten the national ID cards after several years of trying, and why they are currently directives that we should be able to get a card before you can do your SIM card registration, which will last up to March of the new year. And also, there is a fresh one for you government workers. You have up to December to make sure that you clear the hurdle, or else you'll not be paid. That is what is coming from the Controller and Accountant General's Department. As I did tell you earlier, various trade unions and also the groupings within the labor organizations have actually decided to oppose this decision, right from the Teachers Association, NAT, and NAGRAT, and also the group CLOCSAG, and the other grouping being the ICU. They've all decided to kick against this move. Altogether, the conversation really is, how do we fix our national identification system so that all the other things that depend on it will be clarified along the line? Now, Dr. William Ahaji is, no, you are not the immediate past, right?
No, I left in 2013.
Okay, so there was somebody after you.
Yes.
I think it's Osam Kwame Griffiths.
Yes.
I'm sure he should join us for this conversation. We will track the paths all through to understand what's been happening over the years.
Yes,
so we have a clear understanding of really this. So we'll be joined, we'll be joined soon by the immediate past NIA boss, who I understand should be joining us now. Mr. Osam Kwame Griffiths, you're welcome. If you can hear me, sir, can you Oh, what? I understand you're joining us via Zoom, so you can unmute, sir.
Yes, I have unmuted it.
Okay, wonderful to have you. So now we have two former NIA CEOs or executive secretaries, people whose responsibility was to get us cards, identification cards. What I can recall that I had, I remember I was on Legon when I got the card from the NIA. Later on, they said it was no longer able, it had to be replaced. Yes. You were making the point about why our system consistently, it doesn't fail, but we end up not getting the card to everybody. Yeah. And then next year in the system. I heard the Honorable Member of Parliament saying that we should force the Finance Ministry to give the NIA money to open up branches across the country so that everybody can get their card and people can continue with the registration. Would that be a solution to the problem?
The NIA is supposed to be present in virtually every district. Yeah. I mean, just like any of the government institutions, so that people can enroll anytime they become part of the registrable population. So that's something that has to be done. And because the national ID system is supposed to be part of the public policy process, public transaction process. So an institution like that has to be present everywhere, particularly because Act 750 insists or provides for a national ID system that is supervised by NIA. That's the only institution that has the mandate to do biometric registration and be present in every community so that people can have access to it. There are other parts where they do online registration and then they can go and donate their biometric prints, and that then they are issued with the cards. There are different options that are available. We are stuck with this one system. Now, the logistics and operations required for card distribution is equally heavy. It's as heavy as the enrollment process. That's why we welcome the idea that they were going to do instant card issuance. That solves the problem of moving officers and all those people.
So if they are in, they do it once and move out.
If they finish, then they are out.
Okay.
But the technology just failed because I think that we've talked about it. There are several challenges in connectivity across the country, etc.
So if we knew the problems with the NIA system, why did we have to rely on that particular card as the sole card for the SIM card re-registration?
The law did not say that. Indeed, it's not. In any case, NIA is shooting itself in the foot. They insisted that to get a voter's ID card, you must use your NIA registration. And so the voter's ID card, for those who registered for the voter's ID card, they use the NIA card and then people
passport.
Testifying. The passport. Yeah. So why is there a crisis of confidence in, for instance, the voter's ID card? We used it for elections. So you could have added that. You could have added passports as well. Why only the NIA card, which you haven't completed distributing to the people who enrolled, and you haven't completed the enrollment process? It just doesn't.
But the argument of having a synchronized system doesn't suffice here. That we've been having so many ID cards contributed to that pool. We want the SIM registration to be only verified according to the details you have on your national identification.
But they're going to take your biometric prints again. It's not good to have too many databases with biometric prints. It's supposed to be one, but they're virtually doing another registration. Once you enter your NIA details, you're going to go to an MTN office or a Vodafone office to go and donate your biometric data again.
But what's the big deal with that?
It is a highly, Griffith will tell you, it's highly confidential to store people's biometric data.
Is it NITA that's going to store that data? What's the problem with that?
No, you would find out that there can be identity theft.
People even at NITA?
Wherever it is.
National database place?
Wherever it is. But
Yeah.
you see, you don't have to have a multiple databases on biometric information.
But didn't the voter register, didn't we use biometric information?
That's the point I'm making, that it ought not to have been the case. There are systems where then, in the law, there are user agencies that were supposed to be using the data from the National Civil Register, National Biometric Register. Now, all of these institutions have created their own databases, and the systems don't talk to each other. They are not interoperable. So Electoral Commission has its own biometric database. Controller did some enrollment before, and they had the biometric database. NHIS did some biometric data collection. You shouldn't allow the multiplicity of databases on biometric data across the country, because it's not in the interest of everybody. That's why a unified identification system is very important. In the US, when you go, sometimes, as I keep saying, you don't even need the card itself. In India, they use what they call the unique PIN number. So you don't need a card to do the transactions. You need your PIN number.
There are those who are saying that, I mean, even the SIM registration itself is one level of problematic privacy invasion thing. They say going the biometric way is joining a few countries with lots of difficulties. Do you agree?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's the point we're trying to make. That why are they? You see, if you look at the form for enrollment onto the national ID system, there's a place where we take the phone numbers. Mm-hmm. Everybody's phone number is already captured on the form. Okay. So that information is captured in the database in NIA. It is there. All right. So if the phone companies need that, they can collect that data from NIA and establish people's identity. It's a straightforward matter.
All right, now I'll come back to you, but let me go to the Zoom connection that we have with Osekwame Griffiths, who obviously is the immediate past NIA boss. Mr. Griffiths, the complaint here is that we have tried so many years to do just one thing. Why do you think we are even now unable to fix a complete identification system, reliable, strengthened, and delivers on time?
You, and let me say good evening to your viewers, and also a very good evening to my former boss, Dr. Haji, who he and I have done so many things together. Now, I would like to first of all indicate that presently, at least something has been done, and there has been some form of registration. And this registration that, when Dr. Haji and when Dr. Haji became the CEO, and then I was fortunate to work with him, we identified a few issues that needed immediate attention. One of the issues was that every nation needs one biometric system so that you collect the biometrics once because of the security implications of taking multiple biometrics. And also the costs. Because when we checked, I think the list of the APCs were costing us about $60 million. And we had 11 APCs in the country when we needed only one. And the only institution with a mandate to register and take biometrics was the NIA. The NIA was struggling to execute its mandate for lack of funding. So we embarked on the harmonization of biometric systems exercise, where we tried to bring all other institutions who were otherwise using the excuse that NIA was not ready, to more or less come on board. Because it's not like we are taking our money from somewhere or they were using their own resources. It's still GOG funds. Now, we also identified that in order to be able to do that harmonization effectively, the system was lacking in so many ways. The system that had been put together, I think in 2005, thereabout, were lacking in a few things. They were picking only 4 fingerprints instead of 10. And there were certain critical data needs that were not being picked. So we thought that it is important to cure the system of those issues before you mandate that state institutions should comply with the law. and come on board. We went very far with this and went through a design phase and what have you with several companies until, there was a change in government and all the issues that came up to us.
Very well. The question
now,
I'm asking, yes.
The NIA decided to go on a PPP where they went on its registration of mass registration. The issue is that before you can mandate that the Ghana card becomes the sole identity document for any of these services, before you can mandate, you need to finish with what we call the first issuance. And the first issuance has two phases. The mass registration phase, which you send equipment throughout the country and do initial registration for people who can come and queue and are available and what have you, and you pick their biometrics and you instantly issue cards to them. That's number one. Number two is a continuous registrations, which can only occur after you have established district offices. And that gives the opportunity for people who miss the mass registration to walk into your office and get the registration done. It also gives somebody the opportunity to walk into your office when he has misplaced his ID card. Because if I have misplaced my ID card and I'm living in, let's say, Jirapa, you don't have a district office, and you expect me to come all the way to Accra to come and replace that card before I can go and register my SIM card, then that's a problem. It means that if I cannot afford to travel all the way to Accra to come and get this registration done, then my SIM is, I'm condemned for my SIM. I mean, it's definitely going to go. It's a vital part of the initial issuance process. That will give NIA that authority to say, okay, let it to mandate the use of the ID card for various registration services. And then as we stand now, I think that the NIA is quite instant initial issuance of cards. Because district offices, there are no, some of the cards were printed, instant issuance didn't work well, and therefore there's a lot of cards on the hands of NIA, which would require that, they are more or less sent to the district office. I'm told they are already in the district office, that they are closed.
Okay.
They are already in the districts, but they are closed. They are not open.
Mr. Griffiths, because of my time,
yes.
I just want you to drill down to one point for me. How do we fix the current problem of making sure that the NIA is able to deliver the cards, which will make sure that the SIM registration happens and the controller gets his data sorted?
I think it has to do with funding. As for the controller, that's a different problem. The controller is dealing with government workers, there are a few of them. In fact, we had an initial biometric registration of controller where they placed biometric registration services point where people could go and register, where government workers could go and register. That's a small problem.
Okay.
The problem is with the masses. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, has to do with funding. The fact that the NIA hasn't got the required funding to open its district offices. And after those district offices are open, you need to give a certain period of time that would allow people to come in, with public education, for people to come in and get, then you have covered a certain threshold of the population for you to be able to start demanding, because this LI that they are referring to was passed in 2012. But Dr. Haji did not go ahead and say, because this is the case, every bank account that is open is illegal because it doesn't have the NIA card, or perhaps no registration can occur because no other card can be used for registration other than the national ID card. If you understand what I'm saying,
I get you.
So the coverage is more or less a critical part of the enforcement of the mandates. Because if you haven't covered, you cannot enforce.
Yeah. I get your point, and forgive me because my time. I have to let you go now. Many thanks to you. He was your successor, Kwame Griffith. Yeah, but I'll give you the last word on this particular matter. How do we clearly find our way out and sustain national identification as a tool for national development?
I think funding is one. It has been one of the biggest nightmares.
You suffered it?
I suffered it even more seriously than Ken is doing now.
Okay.
President Tefa is doing now. That's one key thing. It's a very serious national exercise that government must commit more resources to and get it done and done properly. We started this thing in 2001 when we went to the National Economic Dialogue, and we thought that this is 20 years for crying out loud. We need to commit to it and ensure that we establish the system so that when you go to a bank and you give your PIN number and they key it in, your data will come up. They will ask you, perhaps check your, at the terminal is there, you check that. So funding is key. The other thing about it is the legislation should be reviewed because it's creating a lot of problems for people to access the services provided by NIA. So those two key things should be looked at. I've said before that the board of the NIA is made up of user agencies who have institutional interests. And so they go out and set up their own databases, and yet they are the policy makers for the authority that is supposed to have supervisory role over their databases. It's a complicated situation.
Are they not conflicted right from the beginning?
They are conflicted right from the beginning. And I've said before that it should be, I suffered from it because at the time that I am insisting that don't enroll, don't create your own databases, that was my board. How was I going to contest the policies of my board? They went out and then created their own databases. So that matter must be looked at. Okay, so there are a couple of messages here that I need to wrap up with before we go. This one says, why are foreign residents and students with ECOWAS passports and resident permits, why can't they use them to register their SIMs and carry on with financial transactions? Ba Mahmudu is the one asking that question there. And Ahafon Totoso is now Kwame Mensa Bonsu. Malamba Haruna says, oh, well, Nanado has paid all the journalists in Ghana, so stop talking. Now, Ko-Mensa Pillar 2 says, no matter what, NPP will break the 8 in 2024. The COPAC says, the centers for the registration is too small and a lot of clouds and also a long queue always there. There are more centers would help. And there is one from Shegu. Please ask the NIA man that when are their cards are full of mistakes. Can it be updated? They say you can update it for 30 cities. Yeah. Yes, when you go there. And this one says, Dr. Haji and Mr. Kwame Griffith spent 8 years under incompetent John Mahama, but couldn't provide even half a card. Well, that's interesting. Am I supposed to respond to that? Yes. All the cards that we have in the system were provided by us. Really? I just showed you that even what's being provided now is just drawing from the data that we have in our database. When I took over the equipment, fresh registration. Yes. They went around to do the registration again. Yes, so I'm saying that there are technical issues about integrating the systems. And then they had to go and take the data from what we had done. Because the PIN numbers that we issued are the PIN numbers on the cards. If anybody who doubts that can look at their previous cards and look at the current card, how would you do that if you have a different AFIS? You can't do that unless you take it from the existing AFIS. When I took over, the equipment were in the warehouse. I set up the entire system, the production system. And so those who don't know, we did enrollment. We covered 70% of the country. We personalized cards. We created a library, a store for the cards, and we're issuing them. I'm grateful to you for your time today. Many thanks to you for joining us. Well, folks, that's where we end today's edition of Upfront. Many thanks to you for also joining us with your thoughts and also watching us live.